This DIY repair is a common problem that occurs with big flat screen TVs, where at a certain point in time there's nothing wrong with the physical display, but the TV has stopped coming on. Generally, what has happened is that either one or both of the main boards in the TV are bad. The cost of a TV, however, is primarily the large display. So if you have a crack on the display or there's something wrong with the display, that is a reason why you need to get another TV. But if it's just that it won't come on, the power won't come on, or the inputs won't work for some reason, then it, in many cases, is just that you can replace the power supply board or the main board. In this repair, I'm not going to try to diagnose the problem with either the power supply board or the main board. I'm just going to replace both of those boards and attempt to repair this television. Next step is to turn the TV down on a soft surface. In this case, I've put it on the carpet, and then you remove the screws. In this case, the places where the screws need to be removed are actually indicated. There's an arrow next to the screws that need to be removed. Not every screw needs to be removed, just the ones that are indicated. So I'm removing the screws so I can actually get to the board inside. In this case, I've just taken out all the small screws that are indicated with arrows in the back of, in this case, an LG TV. And then there are 4 large screws that directly hold it on. And the one that's a little less obvious is that where there's a panel, there's a small screw there as well. This may vary depending upon the brand of TV, but in the case of LG, they'll be very similar. The next action is to take the back of the TV off. And be careful, because there are some large capacitors generally on the TV. There are some capacitors on there that can give you a shock if you're not careful. So you take the back of the TV off, and now all we're going to do is, there's a power supply board and there's a main board. Those are the 2 boards that generally have a problem. You want to be very careful with the little ribbon cable connectors on them, but what we're doing is we're not trying to determine which board is bad. We're just trying to replace the 2 boards and see if that fixes our problem. The next step is to take the power supply board and the main board that you've ordered as replacements off of some place like eBay, or if there are other websites, but eBay is pretty common because you can put in the model number of your television and find out what the replacement power supply board or the main board are, and each run about $30 to $40 for the boards. And as you can see, the power supply board matches the power supply board, and the main board matches the main board. Now, the power supply board has connectors on the side of it, okay, and those need to be disconnected, and that's what actually needs to be reconnected on the new board when it's put in place. The main board will have some cables that have connectors with little flip-up tabs and connectors, and you need to be very careful and in no particular hurry to just disconnect those without breaking any of the connectors off. And there's a cover board on the right hand side of the main board, and that also needs to be removed off of the original and put onto the replacement board. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect the connectors off of each of the boards, set the boards to the side, and then try the TV out after that. The power supply board had 2 connectors, and those you just lift the clip, take them off, and take the screws out, and I've already replaced that. The main board has very thin ribbon cable connectors, and they have little tabs that need to be flipped up in order to get those cables out. I flip these tabs up and then very carefully, without any force, very carefully can remove the ribbon cable connectors that are going into there, and just leave them in place wherever they currently sitting. Now, when I've lifted the board up, there's one thing that to note. On the back of the board, there's a pad that holds the board up, and it's for shock protection. And you just take that off and put that back down on the surface where it came from. And then you take the bracket, that is the cover for the ports, and you move that to the other board. And then everything can be screwed back in place. After putting the two boards in place, the power board and the main board, verify that every connection that you removed initially is put back in place. And finally, after putting all the screws back in place, you're then able to turn the TV on, and you've got a functioning TV. The reason why this repair is possible on many large TVs, or even smaller TVs for that matter, is that the screen many times is broken on TVs in shipping, and the boards are then resold by people on websites like eBay. So the key is you look up the model of your TV, you look up main board, and you look up power board. And if you replace those two boards, chances are you probably fix the TV. If there are lights out on the back of the screen, there are some other repairs on that, but that's a little more involved repair. But for just the general repair of a TV that won't power on, it generally will be solved by replacing those two boards. Now you could buy one board, and if that fixed it, fine, then you wouldn't have to buy the other one. But the easiest solution is just to buy both boards, replace both boards, and don't worry about it. That's it.